brand new around here, I'm Victoria. I started cruising when I was 19 and absolutely fell in love with it. Since then, I've been a huge advocate that cruising is for young people, and I spend a lot of time trying to dispel the rumour that cruising is just for the newlywed and the nearly dead. However, this week I am taking a cruise on a cruise line where the average age of a passenger is 60 years old. So come along with me for the adventure while I lower the average age of the passengers and I explore my home country of Britain. Here is this little addition from Fred Olsen. So just along from guest services, there's an OS map on the wall and somebody's placed a teeny Borealis on it and it moves every day. So yesterday we were in Dover over here and somebody in guest services has come on, moved the ship around to Guernsey in the Channel Islands, which is where we are today. Good morning team, it is day one of our British Isles cruise and we are in Guernsey in the Channel Islands. I was actually meant to come here in 2022 aboard Enchanted Princess, but we didn't get in because of the wild weather, which is apparently pretty common with Guernsey. Some people come here 4 or 5 times before they actually make it in, but we have made it. Second time is the charm. We are safely at anchor, so come along with me while we explore Guernsey. Guernsey happens to be a tender port. Now, tendering is one of those phrases that's thrown around a lot, but if it's your first time cruising, you won't quite understand what it means. Tendering happens when your ship is either too big to fit in the dock of the destination you're at, or maybe there's multiple ships in, so the dock is already full. So what happens is your ship drops anchor just outside the destination you're at, and you go ashore either via your lifeboats like Borealis is doing here or via small tourist boats. Those small tourist boats or lifeboats will ferry you to shore, and when you've finished on shore they will come pick you up again and return you to your ship. Tendering is a Marmite thing. People either love it or hate it. I personally love it. However, I will say that it's not suitable for people with accessibility issues because you have to be able to board the tender under your own power. After a day exploring ashore, we got ready and headed to dinner. Now, dinner was one of the things we were actually apprehensive about when we booked a Fred Olsen cruise because they only operate set dining, and as a family we're much more used to the flexible dining or anytime dining that is offered on the majority of modern lines. However, we ended up absolutely loving set dining and the quality of the food on Fred Olsen was excellent. For my starter tonight I had beef bourguignon. For my main, I had salmon. Look at the size of that salmon. None of this tiny stuff that you get on other lines. And then I had after 8 cake. Cute little map update. It is day 2 of our British Isles adventure. So we started off up here in Dover. Yesterday we were here in St. Peter's Port. And today we're at sea. So our ship isn't anywhere. It's just bobbing about in the middle of the ocean. We are heading all the way up here to Killybegs, Donegal, but we won't get there until tomorrow. Good morning team, it is the second day of our British Isles adventure and we are at sea. So if you've never cruised before and you don't know what a sea day is, it's exactly what it sounds like on the tin. If you have a sea day on your itinerary, that means that you spend the entire day bobbing about in the middle of the sea. So in our case, yesterday we left Guernsey at about 5:30. We have to travel over 300 nautical miles to get to Killybegs, Donegal. So that means a full day and a full night at sea. Now, you have to be careful when you book your first cruise if you've never done this before. Whether you book a cruise that has lots of sea days because some people love them and some people absolutely hate them. I for one am a big fan of sea days. I just find them so relaxing, and my favourite view in the world is that moment when your ship gets so far away from land that the only thing in sight is the sea. So come along with me while I show you what a typical day at sea is like for me. I'll show you my favourite view and you'll get to see all the celebrations tonight because it is formal night. Daily cute map update. We have now placed the little ship on Donegal because we are at port in Killybegs. Hello team, it is day 3 of our British Isles adventure and we are in Killybegs, County Donegal in the Republic of Ireland. Killybegs was originally a fishing town and it still has a very strong fishing industry. When you wander around the town, there's lots of big, actually very beautiful, very well looked after fishing ships in the harbour. But it's also become more touristy in the past couple of years because of where it's situated. It's on something called the Wild Atlantic Way. So if you drive or sail around this particular coastline of Ireland, it is absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, the great British weather is not with us today. We left Guernsey, everybody's wearing shorts, everybody was wearing sunglasses, some of us had sunburn, and we've showed up in Donegal to grey skies and rain and raincoats. So we have been off for an adventure. We got a little bit soggy along the way, but we also found out that Donegal, while pretty, is not that interesting, which was hilariously told to us by the locals. So we all walk off the dock, and as you walk off the dock there is tourist information, which happens in lots of areas, and the tourist information person tells you what direction to walk in. So we all go to see the tourist information man who tells us what direction to walk in, and he cracks a joke that it will only take half an hour to walk around the entire town, and he was absolutely right. It is absolutely tiny. The highlight of walking around this tiny town was me getting the giggles because we went into a Catholic church and a wee Irish woman very enthusiastically told us twice that there was a toilet. Like, she seemed to find such joy in the fact that this Catholic church had a toilet. So that was the highlight of our day. team, normally I'm a big advocate for don't pay the cruise line for an excursion. They're overpriced, it's unnecessary, you can totally work it out on your own. However, if you're coming into a little port like we are today, you're going to just have to cough it up and pay the cruise line for that excursion, because if we think about today's example, there are approximately 2 tourist boats that will sail the tourists around the outside of the Wild Atlantic Way, and both tourist boats have been booked up by the cruise line. That means you can't just get off onto the dock like you normally would and purchase your excursion from somebody else. If you're going into a big cruise port, you'll find that you got off your ship and there'll be 2, 3, 4 people on the dock selling excursions that are much cheaper than the cruise lines. But if you're in a little port, make sure you book those excursions in advance, or the highlight of your day is going to be a little Irish lady being hugely excited that the Catholic Church has a toilet. Daily map update. We are now so far up the top of the country that we've had to flip the map over. So our tiny Borealis is in Stornoway, which is in the Outer Hebrides, which is where we're going to be exploring today. Hello team, we are on day 4 of our British Isles adventure and we are in Stornoway in the Outer Hebrides. Stornoway is a town, it's not quite big enough to be called a city, but it is the biggest town of the 2 islands of Lewis and Harris. So we've had a good wander around Stornoway. It's not very big, but there are some cute shops to be explored. And we've also had a wander around Lewis Castle and Museum, which has some really great immersive experiences. So I'll pop some footage of those in next. We are now safely back on board in the warm. It's quite chilly today, it's only 14 degrees. And we've had fish and chips for lunch in the dining room. And now I think we're going to go watch a movie. Fred Olsen have a auditorium on board Borealis. The auditorium has like lecture style seating, and it also has a full test kitchen for you to watch the chefs cook things. But in the test kitchen they have a screen that they put down, and on sea days or during the day they air movies. So today it is a movie all about Whitney Houston, and they serve popcorn while the movies are on. So I think I'm going to go enjoy some popcorn and watch a new movie, because I actually don't know much about Whitney Houston, which I think some of you might think is horrendous, but she's a bit before my lifetime. I am sorry, I shall go be educated. See you later team. It's time for the daily little map segment. So tiny Borealis is now in Portree. Portree is the capital city of the Isle of Skye, and that's where we're going to be exploring today. Good morning team, it is day 5 of our British Isles adventure. I've just realised I'm going to run out of fingers tomorrow, so we'll have to work that one out then. Today we are in Portree, which is the capital of the Isle of Skye. The Isle of Skye is seen as one of Scotland's most beautiful islands, and from where the ship is currently I can certainly see why. So the Isle of Skye doesn't actually have a big enough port for us to go into, so we're at anchor and we're hopping in the tenders to sail over. So I'm just waiting for my tender ticket to be called and walking around the deck to admire the beauty of the Isle of Skye. So I'll pop some clips in for you so you can understand this amazing view that I'm looking at. It's the map segment because we all know that I love this. So here's Borealis. I promise you Borealis is not actually sideways, it's just because we're sailing up this really thin channel because we're doing something known as Scenic cruising today so that we can admire the sights of Scotland. Hello team, it is day 6 of our British Isles adventure and we are all at sea as we sail our way towards Kirkwall in Scotland. I normally talk to you from the outside deck, but it is very blustery out there today and I don't think you'd be able to hear me over the wind noise. Today we're doing something called Scenic cruising, which is when your captain essentially drives very, very slowly so that you can all have a good ogle at the scenery as you sail past. So this morning we have sailed past Fingal's Cave and the Dutchman's Cap, and some commentary was provided about each of those islands so that we can learn some facts about them as we sailed by. But besides from that, it's a normal sea day and you know how much I love a sea day, so come along with me, find out what we get up to as we sail our way towards Kirkwall. Good evening team, it is the second formal night on board Borealis and I am choosing not to partake, but I thought I'd just head on here and explain a bit about what formal night is, because I think those of us who've cruised a long time sort of forget that not everybody understands what we're talking about. So when you think about cruising, one of the big stereotypes about cruising is that every night the men must put on their tuxedo and every night the women must put on their ball gown. And in reality, that's not what happens. Cruise ships have dress codes, but they're far less strict than you think. As a nod to the past, most cruise lines have something called formal night, where men do wear a tuxedo and women do wear a ball gown. Now, if this is something where you think, oh my god, I do not want to wear a tuxedo or I do not want to wear a ball gown, there are cruise lines where formal night doesn't exist at all. And of course, if you're on a cruise line that has formal night, you don't have to partake in it. However, if you are choosing not to partake in it, that might mean that for one evening, you might not be allowed to go in the main dining room. It depends on how strict the line you are sailing on is. So for example, Cunard and P&O, if you're choosing not to partake in formal night, they will not let you in the dining room. Norwegian Cruise Line don't have a formal night, so you don't have to worry about it if you're sailing with them. Royal Caribbean do have a formal night, but it's not enforced. Princess Cruises do have a formal night, but it's not enforced. Here on Fred Olsen, formal night is enforced for the men. So the men are banned from the dining room on formal night unless they wear a suit jacket. However, luckily for me, it is not enforced for the women. So the women can head into the dining room in whatever they like. I happen to be wearing a summer dress this evening, so I'm going to go enjoy my fancy 3-course dinner, because that is another thing that happens on formal night. You often get a fancier dinner, you often get an address from your captain. So I've just been to the address with our captain, who's told us how many pounds and litres of food this ship has consumed this week. This ship has consumed more than 4,000 litres of ice cream this week, and that makes me slightly scared for what the other passengers have been doing, because there's only 1,000 of us on here. 1,000 people eating 4,000 litres of ice cream is slightly terrifying. So now that we've learned all those facts and I'm slightly scared for my fellow passengers, I am going to go eat my fancy formal dinner, and I will film it to show you guys. On our second formal night, to start with, I had the pea and ham hock soup. For my main, I had beef Wellington. I absolutely adore beef Wellington. There was no lobster on this ship, oddly. And then for dessert, I had raspberry mille fleur, which was more like strawberry shortcake. Daily map update, because you know I love it. Tiny Borealis is in Kirkwall today. Kirkwall is actually on the largest of the Orkney Islands, so let me show you what we got up to today while we were exploring. Hello team, it is day 7 of our British Isles adventure, and we are in Kirkwall, which is in the largest of the Orkney Islands. You'll notice that this is the first time all week that you've seen me in a pair of sunglasses, and this behind me, this is a beautiful blue sky, because Orkney has absolutely delivered on the weather, but they've also delivered in every other way. Kirkwall is such a cute little town to have an amble around, steeped in history. It has a beautiful cathedral called St Magnus Cathedral. It has a beautiful 15th century ruin called Earl's Palace that you can have a wander around. It's such a nice peaceful port to pass a sunny day and to just meander around cute little streets, submerge yourself in local history, get yourself some ice cream, because you always need to eat ice cream when the sun is shining. And I just feel so happy today to be at sea, to be adventuring my way around the British Isles and learning about new places where I live, rather than trying to just jet set off all over the world and learn about other people's countries. It's a nice refreshing change to be in Scotland, which isn't too far from home, especially because I have one English parent and one Scottish parent. It is so warm today team that we have finally opened the pool roof. So the pool roof on Borealis is retractable. That means it's on runners. Those are the big runners down there. And it can be closed in cold weather or opened in warm weather. And yesterday during the Crew Olympics, which obviously I showed you, the roof was popped off so that the crew could cheer from the balcony railings. We closed it overnight because it's a bit chilly overnight, but today it is so sunny in Orkney that the roof is off and people are enjoying some time by the poolside, just having a nice relax in the sunshine. And of course we can see beautiful Orkney behind, so we get sunshine, a nice refreshing dip in the pool, and a beautiful view of Orkney. What more could we want? Just so you can all appreciate my view, because of course I would not want to be greedy. The whole point of this is that you get to experience it with me. This is what we're looking at while we relax in the sun, and I'm sure later I might have regrets. Later I might look like a lobster and have hilarious sunburn. We all know that's a feature of my channel, but right now this view is absolutely giving me life. Just that endless blue sky, the blue horizon of the water, the beautiful formation of the Orkney Islands. Utter happy place right at this moment. on Fred Olsen's Borealis. Evening team, if you've made it this far in the vlog, you will have noticed that sometimes you see my dinner of an evening, but it's pretty common that you don't see me of an evening. You don't see me round the ship, you don't see the entertainment that happens around the ship, and there is a couple of reasons for that I'm going to tell you about. Just get it all out in the open and air my opinion. Now that doesn't mean my opinion is the one that's correct. You're perfectly welcome to have different opinions to me, because that's the great part about cruising. There is a cruise line for everyone, and everybody, if they try enough lines, will find a cruise line where they like every single thing, and that is their dream cruise line. That is who holds their heart. Majority of the time you will find that you love some things about a cruise line, but you don't love others. So in the case of Fred Olsen, I have found that I absolutely love Fred Olsen's food. It is of great quality, it is always piping hot, and there is great variety to the menus. I've also found I absolutely love Fred Olsen's crew. If you've cruised, you'll know that all crews are friendly, all crews are lovely, but Fred Olsen's crew really go the extra mile, and it melts my icy heart. I have spent all week thinking things that are adorably cute. Like, I have not been able to help myself. I want to say "oh" every 5 seconds. However, I have had real issue this week with Fred Olsen's entertainment, which is why you haven't seen any of it. And I'm going to explain a couple of reasons why you haven't seen any of it. So the first reason why is, if you sit in a theatre either on land or at sea, they always make an announcement at the beginning to say that you shouldn't be filming what's happening on stage because it's a breach of international copyright law. Now, most people won't understand fully what international copyright law is, and they won't understand how serious the consequences are that are attached to that. However, I have been performing since I was a teeny tiny dot, and I've also directed amateur shows, so I'm very aware of the laws around international copyright law and what the punishment will be if somebody breaks that. So while other bloggers, vloggers, YouTubers might be fine with sitting in the theatre and filming, that's not for me, because I know that there is a massive fine attached to breaching international copyright law, and I don't want the cruise line to be fined just so that I can get some content for the internet. Now, that doesn't mean that every vlogger, YouTuber, blogger you've seen who filmed something in a theatre has automatically breached international copyright law. Every cruise line has different rules around it, because their rules relate to how much money they have paid towards copyright, because you are allowed to do certain things according to the level of copyright you buy. So if you've ever sailed on celebrity cruises announce at the beginning of the theatre show that they would like you to film it, they would like you to put it on the internet, they would like you to show everybody how great celebrity cruises entertainment is. However, on Fred Olsen, they specifically say, don't film it, don't put it on the internet, because it's a breach of international copyright law. And I am sorry to say, guys, that even if it wasn't a breach of international copyright law, I wouldn't be showing it to you. Like I said earlier, please take my opinion with a pinch of salt. Entertainment is subjective. Some people will have loved it. Some people will think it's the best entertainment they have ever seen. And also, as somebody who has performed since I was little, that means that I'm automatically more critical, because I am a theatre nerd. I have spent a large amount of my life in a theatre, and that means that I'm bound to have strong opinions about it. Now, the entertainment that's happening on Fred Olsen, it's not that there's anything intrinsically wrong with it. It's not that the cast aren't talented and that the entertainment team aren't doing their best, because they are, and there have been some really great moments. So there was Crew Olympics, like I showed you the other day. Those were hilariously funny and a great idea. But the entertainment that's been happening overnight time is just very, very old-fashioned. And I understand that Fred Olsen's age demographic is used to that. They're used to a classic style of cruising. I'm not their age demographic. Entertainment that I consider to be old-fashioned, they probably consider the way that entertainment should be. But here's the issue. The industry has moved on in the entertainment department, and Fred Olsen has really been left behind. So when I started cruising 11 years ago, cabaret shows were really common on cruise ships, and that would mean that the crew, so the cast of the theatre, sang a series of songs and danced to a series of songs and wore a series of different costumes. And at the time, 11 years ago, that was the norm. As time has marched on, shows in theatres aboard ships have lent more and more towards being a full Broadway style show, or a full West End style show if you're English. And if you go on a line like Norwegian Cruise Line or Royal Caribbean, you will find that they have bought the rights to a full Broadway show. So, for example, on Norwegian Cruise Line and Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, you'll find shows such as a full production of Hairspray, a full production of Grease, a full production of Six the Musical, or a full production of Beetlejuice the Musical. On cruise lines where they haven't started paying for the rights to full West End shows or full Broadway shows, you'll find that the cruise line has had shows specifically commissioned for that cruise line, so that they have a unique show, but there is still the length of a Broadway show and still functions as one. So a great example is that Princess Cruises paid the composer of Wicked, Stephen Schwartz, to write them a musical, and that musical is called Magic to Do and happens across the Princess Fleet. P&O Cruises have had shows commissioned such as Festival or Greatest Days, which is a shortened version of the Take That musical that happens on the West End or tours around the UK. Fred Olsen haven't started doing that, and that means they've been a bit left by the wayside, and that doesn't mean the cast are doing anything wrong, because they're still trying their best. But in an industry that's producing full West End shows aboard ships every single night, or if it's not every single night, at least 3 or 4 times a week, cabaret shows are just not going to cut it. And Fred Olsen have been great in many respects, but their entertainment really lets them down. It's time for the ship segment, guys. You know I love the tiny ship, but it is the saddest map / tiny ship segment ever, because Borealis is sailing its way home back to Dover. It is officially the last day of our adventure. I did joke this morning that because I'm actually from up this end of the country, could the captain just pull over and let me off? But we all know he can't do that, so I'm going to experience one last night on board, and I'll be sad tomorrow as we pull into Dover and I have to drive the 6 hours back up the country to go home. Hello team, it is our last day at sea. It is officially day 8 of this British Isles voyage, and we are steaming our way back down to Dover. It's really sad that it's the last day of our adventure. I'm going to miss visiting all these wonderful places. I'm going to miss having a chat to you. But we are not going to wallow in the sadness of it being the last day, because we've still got a full day to enjoy, and we are at sea today. We know how much I love a sea day, so come along with me, see what I get up to, and enjoy the last day with me before we have to return to the sad, sad reality of life on land. team, I'm just going to share something with you because it just made me laugh. If you've ever wondered why there aren't many northern cruise vloggers, the captain just provided us with the perfect example of why there aren't many northern cruise vloggers. So it is 12 p.m. on our last day at sea aboard Borealis, and we've just had the captain's 12 p.m. announcement where he tells us where we are geographically, how many nautical miles we have left to go before we get back to Dover. And it turns out that during the 12 p.m. announcement, the closest piece of land is Middlesbrough, which happens to be where I'm from. So if the captain launched the tender right now, the closest piece of land would be Middlesbrough and I would be at home. But instead, this ship has to sail all the way back down south to Dover. I will get off and drive all the way 6 hours back up north. So even though technically Borealis is in Middlesbrough right at this moment, I will not get home for 26 hours-ish. And this is why you don't see many people who have a northern accent aboard cruise ships. They're just really, really far from us. And it's not that we don't have cruise terminals, because we do. There's one at Newcastle and there's one at Liverpool, and we know that ships fit into those berths because lots of them moored there during COVID when they were unable to go anywhere. It's just that cruise lines need to use them more often rather than acting as if northern people don't exist. Come on, cruise industry, please start launching more ships from Newcastle and Liverpool. Make the southerners drive if they want to go from Newcastle and Liverpool. I'm really sick of spending 6 hours in the car so that I can do my favourite thing. Or alternatively, can we please do drop off? Thanks for coming along for the adventure team, and don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can keep up to date on all my future antics.